Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kate Fenske, Chair of the International Downtown Association Canada, also known as IDA Canada. Today, I am accompanied by community leaders from cities across Canada, including Edmonton, Halifax, Montreal, Toronto, Victoria, and Winnipeg. Together with our colleagues, we represent more than 200,000 businesses in downtowns and main streets from coast to coast. Our primary focus today is the stark decline our members have seen in the health and safety of the neighborhoods we represent. Small business owners in our downtowns and main streets, residents, workers, and visitors, have reported feeling unsafe in their communities, with accounts out of Canada's major cities that paint a picture of communities that need urgent support for mental health and addictions issues and serious reform to legislation that tackles crime. The Nonviolent Crime Survey Index, including property and drug offenses, rose by nearly 10% over the last 2 years. Over the same time period, shoplifting has increased by nearly 20%. These figures underline a growing concern that demands coordinated action. IDA Canada is urging the federal government to help ensure our downtowns and main streets are inclusive and safe spaces for everyone by initiating a systematic review across the country concerning the bail system and implementing further changes to the system by reforming Bill C-48 to address theft. We understand folks are struggling in our communities and we want to see them supported. At the same time, repeat offenders are significant drivers of crime, and the current bail system does not protect Canadians or small businesses. Confidence in public safety is low, and this is too urgent of an issue to wait for action. We need to remove any politics from this discussion. Canadians in our downtowns and main streets can't wait for decision makers to act on this issue. And the data says it should not be political football. Action is needed now. Every single day in communities across Canada, there are stories of crime perpetrated by an individual who was on bail or breached bail conditions. This cannot continue. In a time when broad brush strategies may overlook the nuanced needs of individual businesses, IDA Canada's commitment is to advocate for resources to reach the areas in dire need, revitalizing them for the benefit of all Canadians. But revitalizing our downtowns is not solely about public safety. Social challenges, including homelessness, addictions, and mental health concerns, have become more prominent. It is imperative that all levels of government work collaboratively, bringing together stakeholders and implementing solutions to tackle the humanitarian crisis playing out in our communities. Downtowns should remain vibrant and inclusive for everyone. We are calling on the federal government to dedicate funding to treat addictions and mental health concerns by making strategic investments in partnership with provinces, municipalities, and their social service partners that focus on developing supports, resources, and training programs for individuals with precarious housing, addictions, or mental health concerns. The state of our downtowns, main streets, and communities is every government's jurisdiction, and we all have a role to play. Our downtowns and main streets represent more than just small businesses and commerce. They are the heartbeats of our communities, reflecting our shared history, economic ambition, and cultural tapestry. Now more than ever, we must work together, setting politics aside and focus on immediate action through multifaceted strategies. And let's champion our community's resurgence, ensuring our downtowns and main streets benefit every Canadian for future generations. I would like now to turn it to my colleague Tasha Maurizio, IDA Canada's Quebec delegate.
Merci, Kate. Ce matin, je suis accompagnée des gestionnaires qui représentent des chefs d'entreprise provenant des grandes villes du Canada. Ensemble, nous représentons plus de 200 000 entreprises à travers le pays. Aujourd'hui, nous nous concentrons principalement sur le déclin agressif que nos membres ont constaté dans la santé et la sécurité des centres-villes et des rues principales. Les propriétaires des PME, les résidents, les travailleurs et les visiteurs ont signalé qu'ils ne se sentaient pas en sécurité dans leur communauté. Les comptes rendus des principales villes du Canada démontrent le besoin du soutien urgent pour les questions de santé mentale et de toxicomanie, et d'une réforme sérieuse de la législation relative à la lutte contre la criminalité. L'indice de l'enquête sur la criminalité non violente, qui comprend les infractions contre les biens et les stupéfiants, a augmenté de près de 10 au cours des 2 dernières années. Au cours de cette même période, les vols à l'étalage ont augmenté de près de 20 Ces chiffres soulignent une préoccupation croissante qui exige une action coordonnée. L'IDEA Canada appelle le gouvernement fédéral à veiller à ce que nos centres-villes et nos rues principales soient des espaces inclusifs en lançant un examen systématique du système de mise en liberté sous caution dans tout le pays et en apportant d'autres changements au système de réformant le projet de loi C-48 afin d'inclure les délinquants qui commettent des vols. Les récidivistes sont des moteurs importants de la criminalité et le système actuel de mise en liberté sous caution ne protège pas les Canadiens et les petites entreprises. La confiance dans la sécurité publique est faible. Les Canadiens et les habitants des grandes villes ne peuvent pas attendre que nos dirigeants politiques agissent sur cette question et les données indiquent qu'elle ne doit pas être un enjeu politique. C'est maintenant qu'il faut agir. Chaque jour, dans nos régions membres, il y a une nouvelle histoire d'arrestation ou d'incident criminel perpétré par un individu qui était en liberté sous caution ou qui n'a pas respecté les conditions de sa liberté. Cela ne peut plus durer au Canada. À une époque où les stratégies globales risquent de négliger les besoins nuancés des entreprises individuelles, notre engagement est de veiller à ce que les ressources atteignent directement les zones qui en ont le plus besoin, afin de revitaliser au profit de tous les Canadiens. Mais la revitalisation de nos centres-villes n'est pas seulement une question de sécurité publique. Les défis sociaux, notamment l'itinérance, le toxicomanie et les problèmes de santé mentale, sont devenus plus importants. Nos communautés doivent rester dynamiques et ouvertes à tous. Nous demandons au gouvernement fédéral de consacrer des fonds au traitement des dépendances et des problèmes de santé mentale en faisant des investissements stratégiques en partenariat avec les provinces, les municipalités et leurs partenaires des services sociaux. L'état de nos centres-villes, de nos rues principales et de notre communauté relève de la compétence de chaque gouvernement et nous avons tous un rôle à jouer. Nos centres-villes, nos artères commerciales et nos rues principales représentent bien plus que des petites entreprises et du commerce. Ce sont des bâtiments de corps de nos communautés, le reflet de notre histoire commune, de notre ambition économique et de notre tissu culturel. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, nous devons nous rallier. Ensemble, encourageons la résurgence de ces communautés en veillant à ce que leur dynamisme et leur prospérité profitent à tous les Canadiens pour les générations futures. Merci beaucoup pour votre temps. Thank you for your time.
Merci, Tash, and we're happy to take any questions if there are any.
David from CBC. So what are you seeing in your downtowns that has changed, and when did that change, would you say, start to happen?
I can speak a little bit to that, but I'll also open up to my colleagues here from other cities. This was a trajectory we were on, but definitely the pandemic accelerated it. And especially in the last couple of years, as more people are coming back to our downtowns, coming back to commercial main streets, there is real challenges that we're facing on our streets that small businesses are facing day to day, whether they're feeling, how do they keep their employees safe? How do employers keep their workers safe downtown? It is a real challenge, and I'd like to pass along if anyone else would like to step in.
Hi, Panita McBrien from Edmonton. I would echo what my colleague from Winnipeg said. It was really coming out of the pandemic that all of a sudden Edmontonians were talking about really, really visible signs of a mental health crisis and an addiction crisis. 2021, 2022 was the first time that we really had small businesses raising the alarm. I think, urban issues like homelessness and crime have always been there. And I think Canadian cities have been very compassionate. And for the most part, I feel like prior to COVID, we did an okay job caring for those who were unhoused and who were struggling. I know in Edmonton, our by names count of unhoused people has doubled. I think we've hit upwards of 3,000 people again. Nearing 4,000 people who are unhoused in Edmonton, which we haven't had numbers like that in well over a decade. And so some of those things, when overlapped with addictions and mental illness, it becomes very, very alarming for businesses and some of the challenges that they have to grapple with.
Okay, and what are you calling for? You're calling for changes to C-48. There has been changes. So walk me through what type of bail reform are you calling for? What type of changes are you calling to the criminal code to address theft?
I think the first thing is that we're calling on the federal government for a systematic review and working with provinces. I think that's going to be really critical. In conversations with our provincial representatives, it is still a challenge. And so there has been great work already done with Bill C-48 moving forward, but we'd like to see it go a step further. Right now it is around violent offenders and domestic abuse, but it's more looking at some of the things that are really facing small businesses right now with property theft and damage and the criminal activity around there with the spike in retail theft.
It's like not necessarily targeting the high-profile offenders, the crime that causes danger to life, but danger to property.
Yeah, we're hearing regularly just the repeat offenders over and over again that businesses are facing, that they're just struggling right now with what do they do. They're adding security measures themselves. And really it's, when we look at what's happening across Canada, this issue is not different. You know, and I felt we're facing this in Winnipeg and chatting with my colleagues across Canada. Every city, and it's not just major cities downtowns, we're seeing it in smaller cities, in commercial main streets throughout Canadian communities right now, and that has been the big shift in the last couple of years.
I had one thing on that. You know, as representatives for business, we're not experts on these issues. And so I think what we're asking for the federal government to do is to listen to their colleagues province by province and law enforcement city by city, because that's what we're hearing from our partners in law enforcement, in the social services sector, in the mental health sector, and in the justice system, that there are systemic issues that they're having a hard time navigating. So we're not experts in what exactly needs to change, but we're hearing from all of our partners on the ground that our current judicial system and, you know, sentencing guidelines, all those things aren't allowing our justice system to do its job. And in some cases, there needs to be some sort of mental health care that follows incarceration or arrest. And I think that's where the whole system really starts to fall apart, and we need them to collaborate and listen and take action.
I just wanted to add one, but anyone else?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one other thing if I could, because you made a mention about violence versus property theft in terms of safety, but in fact what we're hearing from our businesses is their staff feel incredibly unsafe when there's repeat actions happening on a daily basis in the stores, and they're having trouble retaining and recruiting employees. People don't want their younger college-aged children working in retail at a dark November night, closing up by themselves. So it really is a safety issue as well. Also, customers increasingly feel unsafe and therefore avoid our main streets in downtown. So it is actually a safety issue. And so we really need the federal government to include these multiple nonviolent offenders within bail reform. Oh, sorry, Jeff Bray from Victoria, Canada, but BC.
Business.
Downtown Victoria Business Association.
And just, why do you think this is so hard to tackle?
Great question.
Yeah. I mean, it's been said so many times, right, how complicated this is. This is decisions that have been made over decades and societal challenges. And I think when we look at, you know, what are the solutions, there isn't one solution that is going to make the big difference. But I think if all levels of government work with the private sector, social service agencies, communities, if we work to tackle this together, and it may be one solution at a time, I think we can move things forward. And there is a lot of great work happening in across Canada, but a lot of that is going to take time to see the results of those. And so right now, what's so critical is there has to be action taken now. For example, in Winnipeg, we launched a downtown summer action plan around safety. It added, with community resources, more visible presence on the streets, connecting people with resources. That came together in 4 weeks. So this isn't something that we can wait 5 years. Businesses don't have that kind of time. And so it is making sure that everyone is setting the politics aside, working together and finding what are the things that are going to work and tackling those solutions one at a time.
Speaking of politics, is jail not bail the solution?
I think, you know, every province is going to have different solutions that's going to work for them, and that's the challenge right now. And we're really looking for the federal government to take a leadership role when it comes to public safety. You know, you can say, or health even of communities, and sometimes it falls to, well, that's provincial jurisdiction or that's municipal and policing. And what we're saying is that it isn't one government's jurisdiction when we're looking at the health and safety of our communities across Canada. We really want to see all of them at the table working together, taking best practices from city to city that are working and seeing that we can implement those.
Incarceration part of the solution, would you say, or the solution?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert in that. So I would look to the people that know what does work best. And what we are saying is, let's please look at that. Let's listen to the experts and really talk about it and have the conversation of what do we need to do right now.
I'll add one thing on that. I can't speak for every province, but I know in Alberta, it's the post-release plan and care that we're missing. So incarceration, you know, jail might not be the answer for a lot of folks. They might do, you know, a short sentence. But then what is the plan? Are they in a state that they can go back into the community and not cause further harm to the community? Or do they need to be in some sort of bridge housing? Do they need other supports when they're released? And I think most Canadians would be shocked by how little care and how little planning goes into post-release care and continuation of just managing that individual and what they need in order to be successful in society. And right now, it's our communities and our small businesses that are having to deal with the consequences of that lack of planning.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci, c'est ce qui conclut la conférence.